inside Lee Radzwill's home at 4 Buckingham Place. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. From 1959 to the early 1970s, 4 Buckingham Place in London served as the grand yet intimate residence of Lee Radziwill, the American-born socialite, tastemaker, and younger sister of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. During her marriage to Polish émigré and real estate investor Prince Stanislas Radziwill. This townhouse, just 4 blocks from Buckingham Palace, stood at the heart of a glamorous life, quietly entwined with European aristocracy, American diplomacy, and the British royal family. The house, situated on the small, elegant street of Buckingham Place, was part of a refined row of Georgian and neo-Queen Anne homes, noted by architectural historian Nicholas Pevsner for their soigné character. But number 4 was unique. It was actually 2 houses joined into one, a 3-story double-wide residence that offered space, proportion, and discretion. Exactly what Lee needed, as she transitioned from an Upper East Side debutante to a European princess navigating London society. At that time, London was undergoing a cultural renaissance, which Lee would later recall with affection. Living in London in the 60s was full of excitement. There was a renaissance in every aspect of culture. From music to fashion, the arts were flourishing, and everything was changing with incredible speed. The antique shops of Pimlico Road and Chelsea beckoned, and Lee learned the art of connoisseurship through auctions and dealers, many of whom were surprised by her discerning eye. This period coincided with frequent visits from her sister Jackie and brother-in-law, President John F. Kennedy. During one state visit, Jackie stayed at 4 Buckingham Place, drawing crowds that filled the narrow street just for a glimpse of the First Lady. Neighbors leaned out their windows. Policemen held back onlookers. One iconic photograph captures Jackie, Lee, and Ambassador David Bruce, leaving the townhouse en route to a luncheon with Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace, an elegant convergence of American glamour and British royalty. Inside, the house evolved alongside Lee's own refinement. The entry hall made an immediate impression with its white marble floor inlaid with small black cabochons, a timeless, elegant touch. Against the back wall stood a gilt console beneath a large oil painting, setting the tone for the refined space beyond. In a now iconic photograph, Lee Radziwill is seen standing in this very foyer with her 2 pug dogs. Though the photo was long misattributed to Paris, the identical flooring and architectural details confirmed it was taken in London. The walls were faux painted in soft peach tones, possibly to mimic marble or even the texture of narwhal tusks seen flanking the nearby door. This decorative finish appeared in photos as early as 1961, predating Renzo Mongiardino's work in the house. The painter's identity remains a mystery, one of many charming enigmas the house still holds. Early on, the interiors were comfortable but unremarkable, a blend of fine antiques and traditional arrangements that felt constrained by the home's long, narrow drawing room. Measuring roughly 28 by 14 feet, the room had problematic symmetry. A series of French doors and sash windows faced a mantel, complicating furniture placement. At first, Lee called an English decorator Felix Harbord, known for transforming Cecil Beaton's townhouse into a neoclassical jewel, but even Harbord struggled to make the proportions work. That's when Lee turned to the Italian theatrical designer, Renzo Mongiardino, whose work she had spotted in a magazine. Though they spoke little of each other's language, Mongiardino understood Lee's desires intuitively. She reportedly told him, "My living room is like a bowling alley. Can you fix it?" And fix it he did. Mongiardino reimagined the space as a layered, hypnotic ode to Orientalist fantasy. Indian printed cottons, known as mezzerie, covered the walls, curtains, and lampshades in repeating motifs of flowers and paisleys in muted reds, blues, and yellows. The fabric was sliced, framed, and reapplied in gilded plastic moldings to simulate the rhythm of grand paneling. A plump divan, essentially a mattress with bolsters, was placed at the far end of the room, directly across from the fireplace, giving the long room visual and spatial balance. The overall effect was of an urban seraglio, a blaze of Turquerie, as Cecil Beaton later called it. A round center table, skirted in a bold, stylized floral cloth, echoed the theme, suggesting a kind of trompe-l'œil expansion, patterns multiplying and rebounding around the space in a way that made it feel larger, less confined. The mood was exotic but domestic, transporting but intimate. The decor also winked at personal history. The floral Mazzari evoked the Bouvier sisters' much-photographed 1962 tour of India, blending nostalgia with invention. To contain the textile tapestry, Mongiardino used golden plastic to frame the panels, an economical gesture that nonetheless added architectural definition and a gleam of luxury. This was his philosophy of precious poverty made tangible, a decorative program that borrowed the romantic fantasy of a down-on-her-luck noblewoman who, stranded in a desert tent, arranges her surviving heirlooms into something coherent and dignified. It was aristocracy on a shoestring, but it didn't look it. The furniture further deepened the illusion. Louis XVI gilt wood fauteuils in sand-colored fabric, mingled with voluptuous modern love-seats, slip-covered in apricot velvet and edged in fringe. Japanned tabourets and a demi-lune console festooned with gilt swags and tassels nodded to both Eastern and European traditions. The Mazzari wall panels were punctuated with antique Chinese watercolor portraits by George Chinnery, while an 18th century painting of Princess Louise of Prussia by Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, a Radziwill family ancestor, commanded attention above the mirrored mantel. Each element contributed to the room's layered identity, an elegant dreamscape that defied easy categorization. Beaton captured it all in a celebrated 1966 Vogue shoot. In one image, Lee reclines on the divan in a caftan gifted to her by King Hassan of Morocco, with her daughter Tina nestled beside her. The room appears both grand and intimate, romantic yet practical. Mongiardino's use of humble materials, like Indian bedspreads and plastic moldings, evoked what he termed a precious poverty, suggesting an aristocratic woman marooned in some exotic land, surviving with the most elegant scraps of her former life. This sensibility resonated deeply with Lee, who by then was carving her own path, distinct from Jackie's Camelot image, while her sister defined post-war American style in crisp Oleg Cassini suits and clean lines. Lee embraced a subtler bohemian European aesthetic, one that mixed French giltwood chairs with japanned chinoiserie tabourets and antique Asian watercolors. Her version of chic was not loud, but learned, full of references and nuance. Her guests over the years were a veritable who's who, from Cecil Beaton and Truman Capote to Princess Margaret and Peter Sellers. In quieter moments, she welcomed friends for tea, with pugs underfoot and a cigarette in hand. The foyer, with its black and white marble tiles, gilt console, and faux-painted walls, set the tone. Some have speculated the entry was an early Mongiardino creation. Others credit Felix Harbord. Regardless, it was here that the aesthetic of the house, layered, lived in, and deeply personal, was first felt. The drawing room's aesthetic extended to the dining room. Mongiardino repurposed cordovan leather from one of his film sets to line the walls, giving the space a rich, tactile warmth. In both rooms, his work was transformative, elevating the townhouse into one of the most stylish private homes in London. Beyond interiors, the home served as a stage for significant family moments. Anna Christina, called Tina, was christened in 1960. Jackie and President Kennedy were in attendance at the house. Kennedy was her godfather, and the gathering reportedly included a small, elegant luncheon after the church ceremony. Though the Radzwills also maintained a country estate at Turville Grange, it was for Buckingham Place that remained Lee's primary residence during her London years. Eventually, cracks formed in the marriage, and by the early 1970s, Lee moved to New York, and the London townhouse was left behind. Yet the spirit of 4 Buckingham Place lives on, not just in photographs and articles, but in the DNA of design history. It represents a moment when style and society converged in one woman's home. Lee's close proximity to the cultural heart of London, combined with the presence of her sister Jackie, President Kennedy, and the burgeoning modern aristocracy, made her townhouse a quiet but influential axis of culture. Though separated by decades from other legendary stories of the neighborhood, the Radzwill's era at 4 Buckingham Place remains one of timeless allure, reflecting the delicate line between private refinement and public fascination in the world of mid-century elegance. Today, the carved door frame of 4 Buckingham Place still bears the painted face that once greeted presidents and princesses. The house, despite modern updates, retains much of its original charm. The cement porch tiles may be gone, but the marble foyer, the proportions, and the mystique remain, like echoes of Lee Radzwill's golden years in a city at the height of its cultural powers. In her own words, those were happy times.
And as Luis Buñuel said in the beginning of his book, apropos of his mother, without memory, there's no life. And that's the way I'd feel.